will govern as we campaign.
National will re-emerge from this loss.
Well, hello and welcome to this Business New Zealand Policy Roundtable for Monday, the 19th of October. I'm Grant Walker. Well, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and the Labour Party coasted to a victory. In fact, that's an understatement on the weekend, riding a wave of support for her response to COVID-19. For National, well, time to rebuild. After the second worst result in its history, the party got just 27% of the vote and lost 15 electorates and 20 MPs. And the Greens and ACT, well, they had a strong result with 7.8 and 8% respectively. Well, Ms Ardern has outlined her immediate priorities for her next term. Now, she wants more support for small business loans and $300 million in cash incentives to hire the unemployed in place by the end of the year. She said first out of the blocks will be the flexi wage scheme and changes to the small business cash flow loan scheme. The flexi wage scheme would subsidise businesses an average of $7,500 and up to $22,000 if they give unemployed Kiwis a sustainable job. The $311 million scheme is estimated to support up to 40,000 jobs. The Small Business Cash Flow Loan Scheme would be extended until the end of 2023, while doubling the interest-free period from 1 year to 2 years. More on that and the election shortly with Business New Zealand CEO Kirk. But first, the Trans-Tasman bubble is once again in disarray. New Zealand travellers arriving as part of the new international arrangements have left the state authorities scrambling after taking internal flights to jurisdictions outside of the travel bubble. Under the arrangement, New Zealanders were granted access to fly into New South Wales and the Northern Territory. However, on Friday night it emerged that some Trans-Tasman arrivals took connecting flights onto Melbourne, and there's some conjecture as to whether or not they were allowed to do that. Well, Victorian authorities have now spoken to all 55 people who were expected to arrive in the state to explain local coronavirus rules. So, joining me now to discuss the election result, firstly, is Business New Zealand CEO Kirk. Well, the landslide, well, I suppose that's an understatement almost, isn't it, really? Were you expecting this? Was anyone expecting this?
Oh, look, it was a pretty strong result. I mean, if you look at some of the polls leading in, I guess 46, 47 was anticipated. Did anyone expect this level of landslide? I'm not sure anyone did, not even Labour itself. But what it does do is give Labour a strong mandate to do some things, and some of the things that I think we would like to see would be for them to really now get on with implementing and executing some of the big-scale infrastructure infrastructure things that they have in play. I think there's a really good opportunity across so-called social and economic infrastructure. So social stuff is, hospitals, housing. It is schools that might need an upgrade, as well as economic infrastructure like roads, like ensuring that there's ultra-fast broadband accessibility for people in rural areas so that they can continue to participate. I think there's a huge opportunity to create a transformational agenda just in that space alone.
Although the word transformation, a lot of people sort of fear that word, don't they? Because they sort of think it's in some ways going back to the past a little bit, or it depending on which side, of the line you're on. What do you take the word transformational to be that's not scary for business?
Yeah, well, I think, as I've said just now, I think if you can transform New Zealand by ensuring that people have a higher quality of life, and you can do that by enabling them to be able to get to work quicker, or if they don't want to travel in car, bus, bike, or train, that they have high quality, or they can't, but they have high quality broadband so that they continue to participate. I think that's critical. I think a proper roading infrastructure to connect communities and make them sustainable is going to be really, really important. I think it's using smart data management systems to better manage traffic flows. There's a whole raft of things that can ensure New Zealanders can enjoy a better quality life. New Zealand businesses can participate because this will unlock a huge amount of private investment, because you're opening up areas of New Zealand that might have been less open previously. And if we're thinking about a domestic economy, primarily, I mean, we're obviously going to have our exports, but if we're not going to have people coming into the country, we're going to want to have a strong domestic economy, and these are some levers for ensuring that domestic economy can be strong. It's a platform as well for developing skills in areas where we've had big skill shortages like STEM.
You and I both know the word uncertainty is a horrible one for business, but now that I guess Labor are aligned, I mean, they haven't just made the decision on whether they're going to go with the Greens yet, but even if they do go with the Greens have got no bargaining power at all, at least for the next 3 years. So there's no more uncertainty. We know where we are now, and we pretty much can probably work out the agenda too, can't we? And the PM has said that she's in a bit of a hurry to get started.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. I think there's a lot of businesses that would also be impatient for the government to start to do stuff. One area where I think they could probably expand the pace and scope of what they can do is they've designated a group of projects that don't need to go through full RMA processes. I think they could expand that to enable a lot more to happen a lot more quickly. It doesn't rely on the Randerson Review being, the government responding to the Randerson Review and then the legislative process. It can be, they can get on with it.
What about pay equity, workers' conditions, etc.? What are you expecting there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the government's already indicated that it's going to double sick leave. One of the things that will be, I think, challenging is where the government chooses policies that will impose immediate costs. If businesses can't see where that revenue is going to come from, and they can't pass costs on. So I think that's going to be an area of challenge, and I think in the industrial relations space it's very clear that they want to make some changes, introduce fair pay agreements. I mean, there is a bit of water to go under the bridge there in terms of which industries or which sectors would they be picking.
I guess we'll know fairly soon. The latest PMI result is out too. Now, is that as expected? Because figures seem to be improving, but really they always were going to because they were off a low.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's, the last, I think, 2 PMI and PCI surveys have come off a very low base. So we're back in growth, and that's a good thing. It's off a low base though. I mean, what we want to see though is that that growth can continue. We don't want to see the PMI or the PSI back in negative territory because of the, what that will mean is that there's been another lockdown or another alert level increase, and I don't think anyone needs that.
All right, so in terms of you talking to the government, you'll be talking to them, I imagine, fairly soon if you haven't already.
Yeah, look, I mean, what we've done is communicate to them around our aspiration. We sent the government a document that was put together by sort of 60 CEOs.
Oh, that's right, we spoke about that last
right.
week, yeah.
Yeah, so that covers off some of the border stuff and the scope, scale and aspiration in terms of infrastructure, and then jobs and skills and training, and of course the economy. So that is the platform for our discussions. We've obviously worked pretty collaboratively with the government over the COVID period, and we'd hope to be able to continue to work in that way.
Kirk, thank you.
Thank you.